"I don't think this is the right place for you," he said, looking her up and down, like she was something tracked in on the bottom of someone's shoe. She didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just looked at him the way you look at someone you already feel sorry for. That was the moment everything changed, though he wouldn't know it yet. Lydia Shen had driven 4 hours that morning, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that she'd done it in a rented Civic because her own car was in the shop, wearing jeans and an old Columbia sweatshirt because she'd come straight from the airport, and carrying a paper coffee cup from a gas station because she hadn't slept on the red eye, and she needed something to hold. She looked, by her own admission, like a grad student who had gotten lost on the way to a library. She was not a grad student. At 31, Lydia was the youngest sitting board member of Hartwell Group, a private equity firm with controlling stakes in 14 hospitality properties across the Southeast. One of those properties was Callaway Pines Country Club, a sprawling, manicured facility outside of Augusta, Georgia, that had been underperforming for 3 consecutive quarters and was, as of 8 weeks ago, flagged for a full operational review. Review was Lydia's job. She had asked specifically not to be announced in advance. She had her reasons. The parking lot was full when she pulled in. A Saturday morning tournament had members coming and going in their whites, golf bags rattling in the trunks of German sedans. She parked between a Porsche Cayenne and a Lincoln Navigator, locked the Civic, and walked toward the main entrance with her coffee and her laptop bag. The lobby was the kind of beautiful that required money to maintain. Vaulted ceilings, dark wood paneling, enormous floral arrangements that got replaced every 3 days. She knew because she'd read the vendor invoices. A reception desk curved along the far wall. A young woman behind it glanced up and smiled. Lydia smiled back. She didn't get far. Excuse me." A voice came from the left. She turned. The man walking toward her was mid-50s, thick through the shoulders, wearing a blazer with a small gold pin on the lapel, the Callaway Pines emblem, a cross set of golf clubs over a pine silhouette. His name tag read Director of Member Relations, Brett Aldrich. His expression read something else entirely. "Can I help you find something?" he said. The way he said it made it clear. He did not expect the answer to be something he'd want to help with. "I'm fine, thank you," Lydia said. She turned back toward the reception desk. "Members and guests, only beyond this point," Brett said. He had stepped slightly to the left, not quite blocking her path, but close enough that stopping was the natural response. "Yes," she stopped. "I'm aware of that," she said. "Are you a member?" No. Guest of a member? No. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Then I'm going to have to ask you to." "I have a meeting," Lydia said, "with your club manager. 10 o'clock. Brett's expression shifted just barely. "Mr. Forsyth?" "If that's your club manager, yes." Looked at her for a moment. The paper coffee cup, the sweatshirt, the laptop bag with a fraying strap on one shoulder. She watched him do the math and come up with the wrong answer. "I'll need to verify that," he said. "By all means." He pulled out his phone with the particular energy of someone who expected to be proven right. She waited. He made a call, turned slightly away, spoke in a low voice. She heard the words "someone at the front" and says she has a meeting, and then a pause, and then something that made his shoulders shift. He turned back around. "Mr. Forsyth is ready for you," he said. His voice had changed frequencies. "I can walk you back." "I know where the administrative wing is," Lydia said. "Thank you." She walked past him. Her actual meeting with James Forsyth, the club manager, lasted 40 minutes and covered everything from membership retention rates to food and beverage margins to the ongoing issue with the 15th hole's drainage system. Forsyth was competent, careful, and nervous in the way people are when they know they're being evaluated but don't know exactly why. Lydia took notes on a legal pad. She asked precise questions. She did not offer reassurances. When it was done, she asked for a tour. This was not on the schedule. Forsyth blinked. Of course, I can have someone. I'd prefer to walk on my own, if that's all right. Another blink. Of course. She spent the next hour and a half moving through the property the way she always did these reviews. Not as an executive, but as a guest. She walked into the dining room during the lunch rush and sat at the bar and ordered a club sandwich and observed how the staff moved and how the members treated them and whether the manager on duty actually managed or just stood near the host, stand looking important. Walked the locker room corridor, the pro shop, the halfway house out near the 9th hole. She stood on the practice, putting green for 8 minutes, and watched a junior instructor work with a kid who couldn't have been more than 10 years old, and the way he spoke to that kid, patient, specific, encouraging, was the best thing she'd seen all day. A was heading back toward the main building when she passed the members' services patio, a shaded terrace with cafe tables where members could order drinks between rounds. There was a small bar tucked into one corner, staffed by a young woman who was alone and clearly overwhelmed. 4 tables backed up, no server in sight, phone buzzing on the counter behind her. Lydia sat down at the nearest empty table. And she waited. Oh, no one came. After about 6 minutes, Brett Aldrich appeared. Not to take her order, not to apologize for the wait. He had walked out onto the terrace for some other reason entirely, spotted her, and stopped. "I help you?" he said again. Same tone as before, same weight behind it. "I'm waiting for service," Lydia said. "This is a members-only terrace. I was told by Mr. Forsyth that I had full access to the facility for today's review." Brett looked at her. Something moved behind his eyes. "What review?" "Operational review." She folded her hands on the table. "I'm with the ownership group." Laughed. Not loudly, just a breath, a small exhale of disbelief. "The ownership group." Yes. "Right." He said it the way people say sure when they mean absolutely not. He pulled a chair out from the table and sat down across from her, which was so far past professional that it briefly stunned her. "Listen, I'm going to be straight with you. We get a lot of people who wander in here, especially on tournament days. I don't know who told you what, but I've been with this club for 11 years, and I know every face associated with our ownership structure. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think maybe there's been some confusion." Lydia looked at him for a long moment. 11 years, she said. "Oh, that's right. And in 11 years, have you met everyone in the Hartwell group?" Small pause. "The primary partners, yes." "Hartwell has 14 board members," she said. "I joined the board 22 months ago, which means I've been on your ownership structure for nearly 2 years, and you've never met me, which is completely normal. What's not normal is what you're implying right now." Brett's jaw moved, not words, just movement. "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt," Lydia continued, "and assume this is a misunderstanding. But I want to be clear about what I observed today, starting from the moment I walked through those doors." There, he started to speak. "I'm not finished," she said, quietly, without heat, just fact. "Yes," he stopped. "When I came in this morning, you approached me within 30 seconds of my entering the lobby. You did not approach the 3 other people who entered after me, all of whom were white, none of whom were wearing anything more formal than what I have on right now. You asked if I was a member. You asked if I was a guest. When I told you I had a meeting, you made a call to verify it. Which is fine, that's appropriate, but then you offered to walk me back, as though I needed an escort to a meeting in a facility I have financial oversight of. And now, on a member terrace where I have been given full access by your club manager, you have sat down across from me uninvited, told me you know the ownership structure, and implied that I don't belong in it." The terrace was quiet. 2 members at a nearby table had stopped talking. Brett's face had gone through several colors. I wasn't implying." "What were you implying?" "Answer. "I'm going to finish my review," Lydia said, "and then I'm going to write my report, and the sections on member services is going to be very detailed." She stood up. "Have a good afternoon, Mr. Aldrich." She walked back inside. The report took 2 weeks to write. It was 43 pages, including appendices. The section on operational efficiency was thorough. The section on food and beverage costs was damning. The section on staff culture and member relations was the longest section in the document, and it included a subsection that was 3 pages on its own. She did not name Brett Aldrich in that subsection. She didn't have to. The pattern she described was specific enough that anyone reading it would know exactly who she meant and what he had done, and how many times he had probably done it before to people who didn't have a board seat, and a legal pad and 43 pages to answer with. Board meeting was held in Charlotte, in a glass-walled conference room on the 22nd floor. There were 9 people around the table. Lydia presented for an hour and 20 minutes. She used slides for the financial section and spoke from memory for everything else. When she got to member services, she put the slides away. "I want to describe something that happened during my site visit," she said. "Not because it's the most significant financial issue in this report. It isn't. But because it is the most significant issue, period." I told them what had happened. Plainly, in order, without editorializing. She described the lobby, the question about membership, the phone call, the terrace. The chair pulled out uninvited. The 11 years said like armor. The room was very quiet when she finished. Board chair, a woman named Frances Kellerman, who had built 3 companies from nothing and had absolutely no patience for anything that could become a lawsuit, took off her reading glasses and set them on the table. "What are your recommendations?" Frances asked. "Ooh," Lydia said. "A full review of hiring and training protocols in member-facing roles, specifically around implicit bias, and a personnel decision regarding the current director of member relations." "What kind of personnel decision?" "Termination," Lydia said, "for cause." Frances looked around the table. No one objected. "Write it up," Frances said. Termination letter reached Callaway Pines on a Thursday. Brett Aldrich was called into James Forsyth's office at 2 in the afternoon, which was earlier than he expected and later than he deserved. The letter cited a pattern of conduct inconsistent with the club's stated values and obligations to its members and guests. It did not say Lydia's name. It didn't need to. "I cleaned out his office in 40 minutes. He had been there 11 years. He had counted on those years like currency. He had spent them accumulating a particular kind of confidence. The kind that comes from never being corrected, from always having the authority to define who belonged and who didn't, from looking at someone and deciding, without any information at all, that they were not worth the assumption of good faith. Had been wrong about exactly one person too many. James Forsyth sent Lydia an email that Friday morning. It was professional and brief. He thanked her for the thoroughness of her review and noted that several of her operational recommendations were already being implemented. He did not mention the personnel change directly. He didn't need to. What he did mention was the junior instructor she had paused to watch at the practice green, a 24-year-old named Marcus, who had been with the club for 2 years and who had 3 times requested funding for an expanded junior development program that had been quietly deprioritized each time it came up for budget review. The program, Forsyth wrote, had just been approved. Lydia read that part twice. Wrote back, "Good, that's the right call." Then she closed her laptop and finished her coffee and thought about a 10-year-old kid on a pudding green and a patient voice telling him to bend his knees a little more. And how some things matter more than they look like they matter from the outside. Was already scheduled to visit the next property on her review list, a resort property outside of Savannah with drainage issues of its own and a food and beverage program that needed more than a fresh menu. Rented another Civic. She wore another sweatshirt. She had learned a long time ago that what you look like when you walk through a door tells you almost nothing. How you're treated when you walk through it tells you everything. And she always took very, very good notes. I keep thinking about the moment Brett pulled out that chair and sat down across from Lydia like he owned the conversation. Like 11 years gave him that right. Like the coffee cup and the sweatshirt and the laptop bag with the fraying strap told him everything he needed to know about who she was and what she deserved. Was so certain. That's the part I can't stop coming back to. There's a particular kind of confidence that tells up in people who are never corrected, who spend years making small judgments about other people, who belongs, who doesn't, who gets the benefit of the doubt and who gets the escort to the exit, and face no consequences for any of it. It starts to feel like instinct, like good judgment, like experience. And that's when it becomes dangerous, because it isn't any of those things. It's just unchecked habit wearing the costume of authority. What Brett didn't understand, what he couldn't have understood, sitting across that table, was that Lydia had already been watching for hours. She had walked every corridor. She had timed the service. She had sat at a bar during the lunch rush and observed who got help and who got ignored. Had watched a young instructor work with a 10-year-old kid on a pudding green and noted the patience in his voice, the specificity of his feedback, the way he treated that child like his attention mattered. She had been building a picture methodically, the way someone does when they came prepared. That's what I think about when I think about what it means to really show up for something. Not just to walk through a door with the right credentials, but to actually pay attention, to do the work that nobody's watching you do. Lydia didn't have to spend an hour and a half walking the property on her own. She could have done the meeting with Forsyth, checked her boxes, and left. Nobody would have faulted her for it. But she stayed. She observed. She took notes on things that wouldn't show up in a spreadsheet. That kind of discipline, the kind that doesn't need an audience, is what separates people who are capable from people who are actually good at what they do. And I think it's also, quietly, what Brett underestimated. He saw a woman in a sweatshirt carrying a gas station coffee. He didn't see the legal pad. He didn't see the 43 pages that were coming. There's something that happens when you treat people dismissively. Not just morally wrong, though it is that, but practically stupid. You don't get to know what you're dealing with. You've already decided, so why look closer? Brett spent 11 years learning every face in an ownership structure, and somehow never considered that the structure might add someone new. He closed his mind to the possibility before it ever walked through the door. And Lydia, she kept hers open, even when he sat down across from her uninvited, even when he said right in that tone that meant absolutely not. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't perform outrage. She just said, "I'm not finished," and meant it. That quiet certainty is something I've had to learn the hard way. That the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to diminish you is to simply continue, to stay grounded in what you know to be true about yourself and do your job anyway. Not to prove something to them. They're not worth that, but because the work matters, and you came here to do it. Brett walked out of that building with a box of 11 years. Lydia drove to Savannah in another rented Civic. Some things settle themselves in the end exactly the way they should.